watched Nathan stand on the stage with a smile that made my stomach turn. Behind him, a massive screen displayed my idea. Pulse, the app one had spent a year developing to help people track their burnout before it destroyed them. Every word he spoke was mine. Every feature he showed was something I had coded late into the night. Every pixel on that screen came from my brain, my hands, my sleepless nights. "This is the future of workplace wellness," Nathan announced, spreading his arms wide like he had just invented fire. The room erupted in applause. My colleagues clapped. Some of them looked at me with confusion, but I kept my face still. Nathan glanced in my direction and smirked. That smile told me everything I needed to know about what he had done. "My name is Claire, and I'm 28 years old. I had been working at Synergist Tech for 3 years, and Nathan was my boss. He was the kind of manager who talked a big game but never did much work himself. I was the one who actually built things. I was the one who stayed late, fixed problems, and came up with ideas that could change things. But Nathan was good at one thing: taking credit for other people's work. I sat there in that conference room feeling something inside me shift. I wasn't angry yet. I was too shocked for that. But I knew in that moment that something fundamental had changed. I had been invisible for too long. Today, someone had finally noticed my work. Just happened to be the wrong person. 6 months earlier, I had been excited about my idea. I had pitched Pulse to Nathan on a Tuesday afternoon in his office. The concept was simple but powerful. Most people don't realize they're burning out until it's too late. By then, the damage is done. They've already damaged their health, their relationships, and their careers. My app would let people measure their burnout in real time through simple daily questions and personalized insights. Nathan had leaned back in his chair and shook his head. "It's too soft," he had said, not even looking at me. "No one invests in empathy. People want productivity tools, not therapy apps." He had dismissed me like I was pitching him a homemade candle. I had walked out of his office disappointed, but not defeated. That night I went home and kept working on the idea anyway. Every evening I sat at my kitchen table and refined the concept. I wrote the code. I designed the interface. I tested every feature myself. Hours turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. I was building something real, something that could help people. One night, I uploaded my latest prototype to a private code repository that only I could access. This was my insurance policy. No one else had the password. No one else could see these files unless I wanted them to. As I finalized the upload, I added something special, a hidden digital signature embedded in the code. It was like leaving my fingerprint on everything I created. If anyone tried to steal it, that signature would prove it was mine. I saved the work and closed my laptop, exhausted but satisfied. I had no idea how important that decision would become. 3 months later, everything changed. Nathan suddenly called me into his office with a completely different attitude. He was smiling, almost charming. "I've been thinking about your Pulse idea," he said, leaning forward. "I think we were too quick to dismiss it. Could be a great team initiative. What if we developed it together?" My heart jumped with hope. Maybe he had finally understood what I was trying to create. Maybe he had seen the potential after all. I felt flattered and excited. This could be the moment where my work finally got the recognition it deserved. But something felt off. His praise seemed rehearsed, like he was reading from a script. His eyes kept darting away from mine. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I had worked with Nathan long enough to know when he was being genuine, and this wasn't it. This was something else. A few days later, I was looking through my email for an old message when I noticed something strange. Nathan had forwarded my private design document to his personal email address. He had sent it to himself without asking me first, without even telling me. That email was still in my sent folder, proving he had done it. My suspicions had been correct. Something was definitely wrong. I decided to confront him about it. I walked into his office and closed the door behind me. "Nathan, why did you forward my design deck to your personal email?" asked, keeping my voice calm. He looked up from his computer and laughed. Actually laughed. Come on, Claire. You're part of the team, aren't you? We're all working on this together now. His response was so casual, so dismissive, that I realized he didn't even think what he had done was wrong. Over the next few weeks, I watched him take my work and claim it as his own. He started presenting Pulse in meetings without mentioning my name. He changed a few small things about it, just enough that he could say it was his vision. When he scheduled a meeting with the board to pitch the idea, I noticed he didn't invite me. I found out about it from a coworker who mentioned seeing Nathan in the executive conference room. Later that day, another coworker sent me a picture. It was a screenshot from Nathan's presentation slide. There was my app, my design, my entire vision, all displayed with Nathan's name underneath it as the creator. My name wasn't anywhere on that slide. It was like I had been erased from my own creation. The realization hit me like a punch to the stomach. He had stolen my idea. My boss had looked at my work, decided it was good enough to take credit for, and then presented it as his own. I spiraled after that. I couldn't sleep. I would lie awake at night, replaying every conversation, every email, wondering where exactly things had gone wrong. I started having panic attacks in my car. I would sit in the parking lot before work and cry. My hands would shake. My chest felt tight. I couldn't focus on anything except the betrayal. This was someone I had trusted. Someone I had shown my work to, my ideas, my creativity. And he had used it to advance his own career. I gathered my courage and went to the HR department. I explained what had happened. How Nathan had stolen my idea and claimed it as his own. The HR representative listened to me with a sympathetic face, but then she said something that made my blood run cold. Be careful about accusing a director of stealing your work, she warned. These things are complicated. It might look like you're being difficult or not being a team player. In other words, she was telling me to stay quiet. Keep my head down. Don't make trouble. Days later, Nathan called me into his office again. This time he handed me a formal performance warning. He claimed I was being uncooperative and not aligning with team goals. It was obvious retaliation for even thinking about speaking up. The message was clear. If I tried to fight back, things would only get worse for me. Something shifted inside me that day. I stopped being angry and I became something different. Became careful. I stopped reacting emotionally and started thinking strategically. I realized that if I wanted justice, I would have to be smarter than Nathan. I would have to be smarter than the system that protected him. I started saving everything. Every email. Every Slack message. Every piece of documentation that showed I had created Pulse. I backed up my prototypes to multiple secure locations. I printed out screenshots and organized them in a folder on my personal laptop. I gathered evidence quietly, methodically, without anyone knowing what I was doing. One night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and whispered to myself, "You're going to thank me for this someday." I wasn't talking to anyone else. I was making a promise to myself. I was going to prove what I had created. I was going to show the world that my work was mine. Someday, when the truth came out, Nathan would regret what he had done. But more importantly, I would regret it if I didn't stand up for myself. Over the next month, Nathan made things worse. He began spreading rumors around the office that I was unstable and difficult to work with. He told people I was jealous of his success. He made it sound like I was the problem, like I was the one causing all the trouble. My friendships at work started to deteriorate. People became distant. No one wanted to be associated with the difficult, unstable girl. But then I discovered something that proved he was even worse than I thought. I found that Nathan had been deleting my commits from the shared project folder. He was systematically removing any proof that I had worked on Pulse. He was erasing me from the entire development history. He was literally trying to rewrite history to make it seem like I had never touched this code at all. That's when I knew I couldn't stay at Synergist Tech anymore. This wasn't just about taking credit. This was about Nathan actively destroying evidence of my work. This was about him trying to make sure no one could ever prove that I had created anything. I had to get out and I had to do it my way. I walked into a meeting where Nathan was presenting to some potential investors. He was talking about his vision for Pulse, describing it with the same confidence he always had. Halfway through his pitch, I stood up and said I quit. Right there in front of everyone. Nathan smirked at me like he had won something. Maybe startups aren't for everyone, he said condescendingly. I didn't argue with him. I didn't cry or yell. I just stood up, gathered my personal belongings into a small box, and walked out of the office. My coworkers watched me leave in silence. I felt numb, but underneath the numbness was something else. I felt determined. That evening I sat at home alone with my laptop. I opened the private repository where I had stored my original Pulse code. Everything was still there, just as I had left it. Every version I had created. Every update I had made. And most importantly, every timestamp showing when I had created each piece. The dates on these files were months before Nathan had claimed the idea as his own. I scrolled through my code one more time and found my hidden digital signature still embedded in the framework. He can't touch this, I thought to myself. He can't erase this. No matter what he does, this proof exists. He doesn't even know it's here. For the first time since Nathan had stolen my idea, I felt like I had some control over the situation. I had done something he didn't know about. I had created a trap, though not the kind you might think. I hadn't done anything unethical or illegal. I had simply been smart about protecting my own work. My digital signature was programmed to automatically record a copyright registration with my name every time the code was updated. It was completely legal and completely hidden. It was a feature I had built for myself like a safety net. If anyone ever tried to claim my work as their own, that signature would prove beyond any doubt that I was the original creator. Nathan didn't know this signature existed. He had stolen the code without understanding all of its inner workings. He had taken the visible part of my app but missed the protective mechanism I had built into the foundation. He thought he had stolen everything, but he had actually left the most important evidence right there in the code. I smiled faintly as I locked the file one final time. He couldn't delete this. He couldn't erase it. He couldn't claim it was his. The truth was embedded in the very thing he had stolen, and there was nothing he could do about it. After I quit Synergis Tech, I took a job at a smaller company called Harbor Digital. It was a better environment, and I slowly rebuilt my confidence. I threw myself into new projects. I made new friends at work. I started to heal from the betrayal. Months passed. I was finally starting to feel normal again, to see a future that didn't involve Nathan or Synergis Tech. Then one day I was scrolling through a tech news website and saw an article that made my heart stop. The headline read, "Nathan Harlow launches Pulse, the future of workplace wellness." There was Nathan's face smiling at the camera. There was a description of Pulse as his revolutionary app that he had been working on for months. I felt the pain flood back immediately. All the anger I thought I had processed came rushing back. The app was real, had been launched. Investors had funded it. It was actually happening, and he was getting all the credit. I almost deleted all of my social media accounts right then. I wanted to disappear, but instead I did something different. I downloaded the app and opened it up. And there it was. My interface, my design choices, my exact color palette. I zoomed in on different screens and found them. Small details that I had added. Then I found something that made me gasp. My watermark Easter egg was still there. It was a small hidden image that you could only find if you knew where to look. It had my initials on it. I had put it there more than a year ago. Nathan hadn't even noticed it was there. He had taken my entire app and launched it, and he had missed the most obvious proof of my ownership staring him right in the face. That discovery set me on a different path. I wasn't going to let this go, but I wasn't going to rush into it either. I started collecting evidence methodically. I gathered the TechCrunch article about Nathan's launch. I searched for every interview he had given about Pulse. I compared his descriptions with my original design documents. I made lists of every feature he claimed to have created. I looked at the source code through the app's framework and compared it with my original code in my private repository. It matched exactly, down to variable names and comment notations that I had written. No one else would have written code exactly like that. I downloaded every article I could find. I screenshot every social media post where Nathan talked about his brilliant idea. I compiled everything into a digital folder that proved this wasn't coincidence or inspiration. This was direct theft. Nathan had taken my work without permission and claimed it as his own. Then, one day, I received a message from someone I used to work with at Synergist Tech. It was from Mike, one of the engineers on Nathan's team. He wrote, "Hey Claire, I just wanted you to know. You were right about him. I'm sorry I didn't speak up at the time." Called Mike immediately. He told me everything. He explained how Nathan had taken credit for multiple people's ideas over the years. He had done it to other developers, other designers, other engineers. I wasn't his only victim. Mike gave me internal documents from Synergist Tech that proved I had authored the original Pulse prototype, months before Nathan claimed it. But then he said something that changed everything. "The investors are starting to ask for the code base," Mike told me. "They want to see the original development history to understand how everything was built." Mike's warning made me realize something important. Nathan was going to have to show his code to the investors eventually. When he did, my digital signature would be exposed. The copyright registration I had embedded would show up in the code. The evidence I had left behind would prove everything. I didn't need to go to war with Nathan. I didn't need to make dramatic accusations or cause a scene. I just needed to let him dig his own hole deeper. I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer named Ms. Patterson. I wasn't planning to sue Nathan. I just wanted to make sure my intellectual property was properly protected and documented. I wanted to formalize everything I had discovered. When I met with Ms. Patterson, I brought my laptop and showed her everything. I showed her my private code repository with all the dates and timestamps. I showed her my digital signature embedded in the code. I showed her the copyright registration that automatically recorded every update. I showed her the comparison between my original code and the code in Nathan's launched app. Ms. Patterson was amazed. "You don't need to fight him," she said. "Let him use your trap. The evidence you left behind will prove everything when it matters most." I waited. I watched from a distance as Nathan became more successful with Pulse. He gave interviews about his innovation. He appeared on podcasts discussing his vision. He posted on social media about his brilliant app. He was building a reputation as someone who had created something revolutionary. But every success he had was built on stolen work. Every interview where he talked about coming up with the idea was a lie. Every article that praised his innovation was unknowingly praising my creativity. The deeper he went, the more he lied, the worse it would be when the truth came out. I wasn't the one creating problems. He was. By taking credit for my work, by lying to investors, by pretending to be the creator, Nathan was setting himself up for a catastrophic fall. I knew it was coming. I just had to be patient. Then one day, I received a professional email from LoomTech, a major investment firm. They were requesting the original design files for Pulse. They wanted to see the complete development history. They were doing their due diligence before investing additional money. This was it. This was the moment when everything would change. Nathan didn't hesitate to send LoomTech everything they requested. He didn't know what to look for. He didn't understand all the details hidden in his own code. He just sent the files thinking it would confirm his story. But when he sent those files, he sent my digital signature along with them. He sent the copyright registration proof. He sent the timestamps that showed when each piece of code was created, months before he claimed the idea as his own. He sent my watermark Easter egg that contained my initials. Within days, LoomTech's legal team contacted me directly. They had found my contact information through the copyright registration embedded in the code. "We need to talk," their lawyer said. "This is urgent." We scheduled a meeting. LoomTech was furious. They had been lied to. They had invested money in a company based on the false claim that Nathan was the original creator of Pulse. They had made business decisions based on deception. If they discovered that the company's entire foundation was built on stolen intellectual property, it could destroy their reputation and their investment. They asked me to attend a meeting in person. They wanted to confront Nathan with the evidence I had documented, and they wanted me to be there to explain everything. The meeting took place in a conference room at Lumteka's offices. Nathan was already there when I walked in. He saw me and his expression changed from confidence to confusion. He smiled like he was in control, like he thought I was bluffing. Then Lumteka's lawyer pulled up the code comparison on a massive screen. They showed the original files I had stored in my private repository, with dates and timestamps proving they were created months before Nathan claimed the idea. They showed the digital signature with my name on it. They showed the copyright registration that automatically recorded every update. Nathan's face went pale. He tried to deny everything at first. He claimed there must be some misunderstanding. He said I must have stolen his code and tried to make it look like it was mine. He tried to turn the situation around and make himself the victim. But then the lawyer clicked to the next image. There on the massive screen was my watermark Easter egg, my initials displayed clearly in the code. Nathan's smirk completely disappeared. The color drained completely from his face. He realized in that moment that he couldn't lie his way out of this. Nathan's composure completely cracked. He stood up and started yelling about how unfair this was. He claimed that I was trying to sabotage him out of jealousy. He insisted that he had created Pulse with his own vision and his own work. But the evidence was overwhelming. It was undeniable. It was right there on the screen, proving beyond any doubt that I was the original creator. The lawyers from Lumteka were not sympathetic. They told Nathan that Synergist Tech and Nathan personally faced potential legal action for intellectual property theft. They said that his investors would be informed about the fraudulent claims he had made. They said his credibility in the industry was destroyed. Nathan stormed out of the meeting, but before he left, he hissed something at me under his breath. "You'll regret this," he said, his face twisted with anger. I didn't flinch. I didn't respond. I just watched him leave, knowing that the truth had finally won. I drove home that evening in silence. There was no celebration. There was no victory party. I felt relief, but more than that, I felt tired. I was tired of the drama. I was tired of the betrayal. I was tired of fighting. I got home and sat on my couch in the dark, just thinking about everything that had happened. The pain I had felt. The anger I had carried. The months of waiting and collecting evidence. All of it. Then my phone started buzzing. It wouldn't stop. Emails were flooding in. Journalists wanted to interview me about the story. Investors were reaching out with apologies for not seeing through Nathan's deception sooner. Former co-workers were sending messages saying they had always believed in me. People from all over the tech industry were offering support. One journalist in particular kept calling. She represented a major technology magazine, and she wanted to publish my story. She wanted the world to know what had happened. She wanted people to understand that taking credit for someone else's work has consequences. I decided to talk to the journalist. I told her everything. How I had come up with the idea, how Nathan had stolen it, how I had protected my work with a hidden digital signature, and how the truth had finally come out. I explained how important it was for people to understand that women's work in technology often goes unrecognized and uncompensated. The article was published online, and it went viral immediately. People shared it thousands of times. Technology experts commented on how smart my protection methods were. Women in the industry shared their own stories about having their work stolen or their ideas dismissed. The internet rallied around me. I wasn't the person who had done something wrong. I was the person who had been wronged and who had fought back using intelligence and evidence instead of anger and revenge. A major investor called me a few days later. He had read my article and was impressed by my story. He wanted to know if I would be interested in starting my own company. He wanted to fund my next project. He wanted to invest in me, not just my ideas but in me as a person and as a creator. I took 6 months to plan my new company carefully. I wanted to build something different from what I had experienced before. I created a company called Pulse Wellness, and I made sure to build a culture where every person's contributions were valued and recognized. Hired ethically. I paid fair salaries. I made sure that everyone on my team got proper credit for their work. I created a transparent environment where ideas were discussed openly and where people felt safe sharing their thoughts. I hired people from my previous company who I trusted. I also hired people from Nathan's former team who had reached out to me. They were tired of working in an environment where credit was stolen and ideas were dismissed. They wanted to work somewhere where their work actually mattered. When my new app launched, it was designed to compete directly with the version of Pulse that Nathan had stolen. My version was more powerful, more intuitive, and more innovative than his. It incorporated all the refinements I had made after I left Synergist Tech. It had all the features I had dreamed about building but never got the chance to develop at my old company. 3 months after my launch, Nathan's name started trending on social media. New stories were coming out about his pattern of stealing credit from other people's work. It turned out that he had been doing this for years, to many different people in many different companies. He had built his entire reputation on stolen ideas. The tech industry blacklisted him. Companies didn't want to hire him. Investors didn't want to work with him. He had destroyed his own career by being dishonest, and the consequences finally caught up with him. I didn't celebrate his downfall. I didn't feel happy about what happened to him. I just felt relieved that the truth had come out and that other people were now protected from him. Then one day I got an email from an anonymous account. It was from Nathan. He was desperate. He had lost his job. He had lost his reputation. He had lost his connections. He asked me if I would be willing to give him a recommendation or help him find a new job in the industry. It would have been easy to ignore him or to turn him down harshly. But I didn't do that. I sent him a reply with just one sentence. I wish you growth. I meant it too. I wasn't saying that to be mean or sarcastic. I genuinely hoped that Nathan would learn something from what had happened. I hoped that he would understand why his actions had been wrong. I hoped that he would become a better person because of the consequences he had faced. That was more important to me than revenge. Truth and justice mattered more to me than making him suffer. A year had passed since that meeting at LoomTech. My company Pulse Wellness had grown significantly. We had expanded our team. We had attracted new investors. We had helped thousands of people track their mental health and prevent burnout. I stood on a stage at a major technology conference. The same type of stage where Nathan had presented my stolen idea a year and a half ago. But this time I was the one introducing Pulse to the world. This time my name was on the product. This time the credit belonged to me. I looked out at the audience and remembered that moment in the conference room at my old company. I remembered watching Nathan present my idea as his own. I remembered feeling invisible and powerless. I remembered thinking that no one would ever believe me or help me. I had been wrong. The truth had mattered. My evidence had mattered. My persistence had mattered. The audience applauded as I finished my presentation. I saw journalists taking notes. I saw investors nodding with interest. I saw young developers and designers in the audience, many of them women, watching me with expressions of hope and inspiration. After the presentation, I did a panel discussion about intellectual property protection and recognition in the technology industry. I talked about the importance of documenting your work. I explained how embedding protective signatures in code could save you if someone tried to steal your ideas. I encouraged young people, especially women, to take credit for their own work and to never let anyone dismiss their contributions. I told them that they deserved to be recognized for what they created. I told them that their ideas mattered. Several people approached me after the panel. A young woman named Jessica told me that my story had inspired her to document her work more carefully. A young man named Marcus told me that my story had made him realize how important it was to give proper credit to his team members. An older woman named Susan told me that my story had reminded her that it was never too late to stand up for yourself. Those conversations meant more to me than anything else. I wasn't just surviving after what had happened to me. I was actually helping other people avoid the same situation. Months passed, and I continued to build my company. Pulse Wellness became a leader in workplace mental health technology. We expanded into new markets. We helped more people than I ever dreamed possible. I received awards for innovation and leadership. I was invited to speak at conferences and universities. I was interviewed by major publications about my journey and my company. But the most important moment came when I received an email from a young woman I had never met before. She wrote, "Your story changed my life. I started documenting my work after reading about what happened to you. When my boss tried to steal my idea, I had proof that it was mine. I got the credit I deserved and I got a better job. Thank you for showing me that standing up for myself was possible." That was the real victory. Not the money I had made or the awards I had won, but knowing that my story had helped someone else protect themselves and claim their own success. He took my idea, but I took back my name. And more importantly, I had shown the world that intelligence, documentation, and persistence matter more than dishonesty and deception. I had proven that the truth eventually comes out, no matter how well someone tries to hide it. I had demonstrated that women's work deserves recognition and respect. I had survived betrayal, and I had built something better from the ashes. I had turned my pain into purpose. I had used my experience to help others. That's the part Nathan never saw coming. He thought that stealing my idea was the end of the story. He thought that taking credit would make him successful and happy. He didn't understand that success built on lies is destined to fail. He didn't understand that integrity matters more than anything else. But I understood. I had learned it the hard way. And I would spend the rest of my career making sure that other people learned it too. By teaching them to value themselves, to document their work, and to never accept being invisible again.